50 years ago, Robert Greenleaf wrote that we were becoming a community-less culture. I didn't grasp the significance of this insight, but today I see what Greenleaf saw coming. Is the three-word phrase. This is a three-word phrase that prompted Greenleaf naming as one of the characteristics of faith-based leaders to build community. This characteristic describes the life of one who makes choices to build and makes choices to shape one's life around building community rather than building competition that destroys community. They make choices to participate and engage others with others rather than win in order to defeat others. Faith-based leaders engage with others rather than creating distance between themselves and others. They transform human relationships from just meeting and greeting to sharing, giving, supporting one another. You know, in reflecting on these last 40 years since I read what Greenleaf said, my culture has increasingly moved from a society that cherished intimacy in human relationships to one who now cherishes distance in human relationships. And I've identified 3 commitments of leaders who, from the perspective of faith, built community. I'm going to tell you 3 stories of laypersons who were followed because they built community. First of all, faith-based leaders build community by making choices for we rather than I. I watched a miracle take place in a classroom of, quote, slow learners. The classroom abandoned the approach using individual assignments. In the place of individually based learning to a team-based understanding of learning. Assignments were given to a team rather than to an individual. Math problems were given to a team to solve. Reading materials were given to a team to read to each other and then discuss what was read. Reports were given to teams instead of grades being given to individuals. The miracle was that this group of slow learners became eager beaver learners and reached their potential because they were teammates in learning rather than competitors with one another. In this classroom, community was built. A serving leader was followed. We rather than I. Secondly, faith-based leaders build community by using horizontal vision rather than vertical vision. Vertical vision is far too common because of social class, economic advantage, color of skin, gender, nationalities. We are taught and we learn to look up or look down our nose on others. Vertical vision enhances self-esteem for those who look down. But vertical vision destroys self-esteem for those who are expected to look up. Horizontal vision was a vision of Jesus as he refused to look up to religious or political leaders, authorities, and he refused to look down on Samaritans, tax collectors, or those engaged in adultery. I had a friend who I first met when he ran the best gas station, service station in Wichita. Later in his life, he held a position that required working with clergy. He cherished the gift of horizontal vision. He didn't look up or look down on others. When he was present, a group was different because he was there. And the amazing miracle which I observed was that he was the one who was most often followed. He was the one who often determined the direction of the group. The one who was followed was not those at the table who held the gavel, held the office, worked in splendid offices with nice furniture. They were elected to all kinds of positions. They weren't followed. This layperson was followed because he had horizontal vision that built community, we, rather than I. The third thing that I would mention about faith-based leaders that I've experienced is that they build bridges, not fences. Fences are built when individuals and groups have conflicting goals, they have opposite opinions, they have distinctive origins. But faith-based leaders do not build fences. Rather, they seize opportunities to build bridges between individuals and groups who have conflicting goals, opposite opinions, and distinctive origins. When I served as president of Southwestern College, a conflict emerged between two groups in a residence hall. The conflict quickly was out of hand, and word was shared with nearby TV stations who were scheduled to converge on our campus early afternoon. I called a person in Winfield to meet with the residents of the dorm. The meeting was called, and the woman said yes. The meeting was held. This woman had no authority. She had no office. She was not employed by the college. No college personnel was present. She listened. She surfaced the issue. Leaders of each group shared their perspective, their story. She discovered that beyond their differences, they had some common concerns. She offered to help them address those common concerns, what they could do immediately in that meeting, and what the next steps might be beyond the meeting. The meeting was over. TV reporters were waiting outside, wanting to get the story of the student uprising at the college. Students were interviewed and shared about the common goals to which the resident hall students were committed. The TV reporters were annoyed and surprised when they found out that students hadn't even been told that the reporters were on campus. They were shocked that they had not been coached in terms of what to say to the reporters. I was accused of scheming to defuse the situation. There's a lot more to the story. But what I witnessed that day was the presence of a bridge builder, a faith-based leader who was followed because she built a bridge to unite rather than building fences to divide. To put it simply as I can, the faith-based leaders that I've known, they build community. They make the choice for we rather than I. They have horizontal vision and they build bridges, not fences. They do everything they can to reverse the trend of a culture becoming a community-less culture. For your thought and conversation, what are your stories of persons who make choices to build community rather than heralding individualism? What are your stories of persons who have horizontal vision? What are your stories of persons who build bridges, not fences? Thank you for being a part of our journey.